Hello, and welcome to Deploy Intune 101, a free video training course on how to quickly configure and deploy Intune as a standalone enterprise mobility management solution. My name is Roy, and this video is brought to you by UEM Authority. Let's get started. We start this episode here in the Endpoint Manager console. To set up and configure an iOS compliance policy, we can either navigate from Devices, selecting iOS, iPadOS, and then Compliance Policies, or we can select Devices, and then under Policy, select Compliance Policies. We select Create a Policy. Under Platform, ensure iOS/iPadOS is selected, and then press Create. We give the policy a name, and a brief description. And then press Next. Firstly, we expand Email. As you can see, there is only one setting in here, which says Unable to set up email on the device. Hovering over the information icon, a managed email account is required. If the user already has an email account on the device, the email account must be removed so Intune can set one up correctly. If no email account exists on the device, the user should contact IT administrator to configure a managed email account. Essentially what this means is if a user is a personal BYOD user and they are enrolling their personal device in order to gain access to company resources such as email, and they are currently using personal email through the native iOS email app, if this compliance policy setting is selected as require, upon enrolment of their personal device into Intune, they will not be able to add their corporate email to the native iOS app if they are still using basic authentication such as Exchange Active Sync, IMAP or POP3. However, as an organization, if you are enforcing a user to make use of Outlook rather than native iOS app, this setting will be bypassed. Moving on to device health. We can see here that there is an option for compliance to check whether the device is jailbroken or not. If the device is jailbroken, we can ask it to block the device from being able to enroll into Intune. So for the purpose of this training video, we will select Block, as we don't want compromised devices enrolling into our service. And then underneath that, we have Require the device to be at or under the device threat level. Now this is in relation to integrated third-party services, such as mobile threat detection. We would set this setting to either secured, low or medium, or high, based upon the settings within your mobile threat detection software. For the purpose of this, we will not be configuring this setting. Under device properties, we can select a minimum OS version. So if the device does not meet this compliance check, then it will be marked as non-compliant. Admins can then review the device and see that the device is not at the correct OS or supportable OS version, in which case you as an organization and an IT administrator can then get in contact with that user and request that they upgrade the OS or operating system on that device. We will set this to N-1. iOS 14 is the supportable version at time of filming. So we put in here iOS 13.0. Under Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, this is an additional product that can be added into your Azure tenant. However, for the purpose of this video, we will not be setting any configuration here. Under System Security, we can require the device to have a password. We will select Require. We will block simple passwords. We will set a minimum password length at 6 characters and the required passcode type. Now we are building this compliance policy for a corporate device, not a personal device. So we want to ensure that the password requirement type is fairly strong. So we will select numeric, and then the number of alphanumeric, non-alphanumeric characters, we will say 1. Maximum minutes after screen lock before passcode is required. So this is the grace period between the screen illumination disappearing and then the phone enforcing a lock. We will say immediately. And then maximum minutes of inactivity until screen locks. We will select 5 minutes. There's always a trade-off between device security and end user experience. So it's always good to try and find a good fine balance between that. We tend to say that 5 minutes is a good fine balance. If we want to set a password expiration, we can. We will not be setting that for this video. And then we have number of previous passwords to prevent reuse. We will not be configuring this setting for this video. Under device security, we can designate restricted applications from the public app store. If we are able to obtain those application bundle IDs, we can list them here. This will not prevent the user from downloading those applications. However, if they were to download one of those designated applications, the Intune compliance policy will see that that is installed on the device and then mark the device as non-compliant. We will press Next. Actions for compliance. We will keep this set as the default, which is mark device non-compliant immediately. Press Next. We will go ahead and add a group. As you can see, there are 3 groups already pre-populated here. We will go ahead and select the corporate devices group. Select, then press Next. Review our policy. Once we are happy, we press Create. We'll then select Compliance Policies, and here we have our iOS compliance policy ready to be deployed. To create an iOS restrictions profile, we can either head to Devices, iOS, iPadOS, Configuration Profiles, or we can select Devices, under Policies, Configuration Profiles. We'll go ahead and press Create Profile. Ensure that iOS and iPadOS is selected. Profile type. We want to create a device restrictions profile. Press Create. We will give the profile a name. And a short description. We will press Next. Now let's say for our fictional organization we want to set a passcode. We want to enforce encrypted backup for any cloud storage backup. We want to treat AirDrop as an unmanaged location. We also want to hide the Game Center app and also block our corporate users from data roaming. So first of all, under App Store, Dock Viewing and Gaming, we will expand, and under all enrolment types, select Treat AirDrop as an unmanaged destination. Now what does this mean? What this does is force AirDrop to be considered as an unmanaged drop target. By doing this, we are reducing the risk of our corporate users from sharing corporate data outside of their device to an unmanaged location. Next, we want to enforce encrypted backup to any third-party or iCloud storage location. So under Cloud and Storage, we'll expand that setting. Under all enrolment types, we want to force encrypted backup. Select Yes. So this will require encryption on device backup. From there, we want to set a passcode on the device and enforce a passcode. Under passcode, we will expand that setting. Under required passcode, select Yes. Now the passcode policy needs to match the compliance policy that we set earlier in terms of the passcode criteria. So we block simple passcodes, yes. The required passcode type is numeric. Number of non-alphanumeric characters in the password is 1. Minimum password length, we want to set that as 6. Number of sign-in failures before wiping device, we will not be configuring this setting. Maximum minutes after screen lock before password is required, we want that set as immediately. Maximum minutes of inactivity until screen locks, if you remember, we set this as 5 minutes. We did not set a password expiry, and we also did not set prevent reuse of previous passwords. Now what we can also do is start to go into the biometric settings of your iPhone device. We can tell the device not to accept Touch ID or Face ID unlocks as a form of authentication, rather force the user to use a passcode or PIN. We will not be configuring this setting, however it is very useful to have that availability. As you can see underneath, we have additional options for automated device enrollment. Now what this means is an iOS device will need to be supervised or the supervision unlocked before these additional policy settings can be configured and deployed. We will now choose to hide the Game Center application. Heading over to Microsoft documentation website, we can see they have kindly listed all up-to-date native iOS bundle IDs. So we go to scroll down to find Game Center. This is the bundle ID here. We copy that, head back into our Endpoint Manager console, and populate. We want to select type of apps list. So we are hiding applications, we are not showing applications. Under the apps list, in the bundle ID column, we will paste the bundle ID and then we provide the application name. Under wireless, we want to block data roaming. We go ahead and select yes. Once you're happy with the configuration, press next. We want to assign the profile to a group. So as you can see, the pre-populated groups, we are going to select corporate devices, select, and then next. We now have the option to review our profile before we create it. So as you can see, we have told AirDrop to be treated as an unmanaged destination. We are enforcing encrypted backup. We are requiring a passcode, and we are also hiding the Game Center app. And lastly, we are blocking data roaming on our corporate devices. So we go ahead and press Create, select Devices, and here we can see our configuration profile device restrictions is now created and ready to be deployed. Within the same blade in Endpoint Manager console, we now want to create an iOS email profile. To do this, we select Create Profile, select the platform that we need, which is iOS, iPadOS. Under Profile Type, we select Email, select Create. We then give the profile a name, and a short description. And then press Next. Our email server is outlook.office365.com. Our account name will be a test user that we have created within Azure AD. Heading into the Azure AD tenant tab, under Users, we can see the user called John Doe at mydomain.onmicrosoft.com. Under Licenses, we can see this user is licensed for Microsoft 365 apps for business. Clicking into the license, we can see Microsoft 365 apps for business is enabled. Going back to the user profile, we will copy the UPN, head back into our Endpoint Manager console. Within the account name text field, we will paste that in there. The username attribute from AAD commonly will be the user principal name, and the email address attribute from AAD will be the primary SMTP address. And then our authentication method is username and password. We want to enable SSL to keep email traffic all secure. OAuth, we have no requirement for that, so we will keep that disabled. Under Exchange Active Sync Profile Configuration, exchange data to sync. For devices running iOS, iPadOS 13 and later, by default, Exchange Active Sync syncs all Exchange data types to iOS devices. Alternatively, you can select to sync only certain data. So the available options here are email only, calendar and contacts only, or contacts only. For the purpose of this training video, we will select all data. Allow users to change sync settings. Well, we might want to allow our end users to modify some settings, so we will keep this selected as yes. Under Exchange Active Sync email settings, we are not using SMIME or any certificate type of authentication, so we have disabled that. Amount of emails to be synchronized, we want unlimited. Allow messages to be moved to other email accounts. If you as a user are familiar with accessing delegated accounts for certain tasks within your job role, you may want to have this enabled for certain user types, as disabling the setting will hinder any productivity a user might want to carry out on their device. The next setting is allow email to be sent from third-party applications. For the purpose of this training video, we will keep this as enabled. And then lastly, we have synchronize recently used email addresses. Yes, we want to keep this enabled. There is no requirement for a VPN for this email profile. We will then press Next, assign the profile to a group, Using our pre-populated groups, we will select corporate devices and select. Then we press next. We can review our email profile before pressing create. We then select devices to see that the profile has been created successfully, and you will see the profile ready to deploy.